In a recent article done by the Joint Center for Housing Studies of Harvard University, an estimated 42.9 million American households are what they refer to as cost burden, which simply means that they are spending more than 30% of their income just towards their housing costs. Now that includes both rent for renters and mortgage for homeowners. I personally don't want you to be one of those people. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to avoid that pitfall by determining what your actual monthly payment, whether that be for a rent or mortgage, should be based on what you actually make. And at the end of this video, I'm even going to walk through a scenario with an example monthly income and showing you the safe zones and where you should be and where you shouldn't be. So you can do this on your own. So before we even get into the three-step process of determining how you do this, there's a point zero or a step zero baseline point that you have to determine. And that's simply just asking yourself, how much do you actually make? Now, the easy way for you to do this is just look at your pay stub, but I want you to be a little bit more detailed than that. Because here's the reality. When you go to apply for a mortgage or you go to try to find your next rental property, a lender is going to base how much you get approved on with your adjusted gross income. So everyone knows our gross income, then we have net income. That gross income is not the money you actually bring home every 2 weeks or how often you get paid. A lot of times you get that back in income taxes, so it's hard to really make I would say a responsible budget on money that you're actually not seeing on a weekly or monthly basis. So for me, I like to operate off the net because it's less money, but it's the actual amount of money that you have and that you will have in your pocket. So whatever you decide to do, whether you operate off budgeting on the gross or the net, just determine what your baseline is, and again, just figure out what you actually make. And once you have that number, then you can move on to my actual step one, which is you're going to use what's called a 28-36 rule. 28% of your gross income goes towards your housing costs. Although like I just said, I like to use 28% of the net income. And then 36% of your total debt, which includes your housing, your car, your loans, whatever you have, goes towards your total debt. Quick example, let's say you make $6,000 a month. Your max housing cost should be $1,680. And then your total debts, including that mortgage, that $1,680, should not go past $2,160. And the reason why this is a good rule because it just keeps you from being cost burden or house poor. And again, I'm going to show you how to really break this down at the end of the video so you can figure out, again, where you are and where you fall and where you should be falling moving forward. Point number two, you have to budget for life beyond your mortgage or beyond your housing expenses. And like I said, lenders will definitely approve you for more than what you may feel comfortable spending. Again, just because you get approved for $500,000 doesn't mean you should go and buy a $500,000 house if having that much of a loan creates a monthly payment where you just simply cannot afford to pay. So on top of that, then you also want to factor in your lifestyle. You want to factor in any savings plans you have. If you have children, groceries, if you like to go out, travel, so on and so forth. All these things have costs associated with them. So you have to factor those numbers into what your budget should look like. If you have children and you want to pay for them to go to private school, then taking a lower monthly mortgage or a monthly housing expense could allow you the opportunity to maybe pay for that thing that you may not have been able to do if you took on a higher monthly housing expense. Or, maybe you tried to do both and you just got stretched too thin and now you're compromising your children being able to go to school the way you want them to go to school, or that vacation that you want to go on, or whatever it is. So again, that lender might tell you, you get approved for X amount of dollars and your monthly payment is $2,500. Well, if $2,500 just for housing puts you over 28-30%, and that eats into some of the budget that you have for traveling or for your family or for whatever the case may be, then it may be smarter for you to find a property where you can only have to pay $2,000, and that frees up that money to be able to do more. So again, your lifestyle is just as important. Maintaining your lifestyle or maintaining a lifestyle that makes you happy is just as important as having a house that makes you happy. So all these scenarios and examples and all these tips aside, let's talk about how we actually determine how much house you can afford that doesn't make you like 42.9 million other American households. So let's get into that. As you can see, I have a graphic on the screen here, and we are going to assume, in this scenario, we're going to assume this person makes $6,000 net monthly. Like I said, I like working with monthly simply because it's the money that I know for a fact I'm getting every time I get paid every month. So gross, that might be realistically more like $8,000 to $9,000 a month. But again, I like working off of this number because quite frankly, it's more conservative, and I've already explained this. So if you look at this graphic here, you see that this person has a net monthly income of $6,000. In order for them to be in the safe zone, which is actually less than that 28%, it's 25%, their monthly payment should be $1,500. Now, I know in this market, especially here in South Jersey, you'd be hard pressed to find a place where your mortgage or your rent is $1,500. But it is possible, and there are many different ways to ensure that you can have a monthly payment that low, especially if you are buying a house, because there's a lot of different things you can do. But anyway, that's for another video. So if you look here, between 25 and 30%, that is the safe to comfort zone. And again, so that 28% that we mentioned earlier in the 28 to 36 rule, 28 would obviously fall in between there. So at 30%, you're at $2,000 a month, and that's comfortable. You know, that's only a third of your income going towards your housing. And then for the 36%, you would just factor in what your other expenses amount to that bring you up to 36%, which I should do that right now. So what's 36% of 6,000? So that would put you at 2,160. So again, that's kind of, that's kind of a stretch. And that's why people do this with the gross, because it's obviously more money. Because I think it would be hard to cap out at $2,160 when you still have to eat, or that doesn't really fall into it actually. If you have any other debts, it would be hard for that to only be capped out at 2,160. But again, just as this rule of thumb, your scenario is your scenario. So now, once you get to that 30 to 40% range, that's when you start getting stretched. Now, I'll be honest, again, because of the economy that we live in right now, and again, specifically to my market, which is Camden County and Gloucester County in New Jersey, a lot more people, and based on that study that we saw, a lot more people are living beyond 30%. So they're starting to get into that yellow zone. So between that $2,000 to $2,400 monthly payment, and you just want to know where you are. You want to know where you fall. And then ideally, this is something that you're doing before you go out and purchase a house, rent a new place. You do this exercise so that you know where you want to be ideally, and it just helps you become a smarter buyer, a smarter renter. And if you look at it, once you get to 40 to 50%, or anything beyond 50% is just, quite frankly, really aggressive. So you see here, $3,000 is half of the income. You don't want to be there. A lot of people, unfortunately, are in that spot, and you never want to be in a place where so much of your money is being taken up by one thing, because you will honestly start to resent that thing. The car you drive, the house where you live, whatever that thing is that takes up so much of your income, you just will never feel good about it. So I really encourage you, and I really do implore you to do this exercise. Really get a pen and paper and write down how much you actually make per month. Divide that number by using this example on the screen. Divide that number by 25%, by 30%, by 40%. Divide it in half by 50%, and see where exactly you need to be in order to be able to make a smarter decision. Because again, like I've been saying, and I want to really drill this point home to you, the lender is trying to get you to take out as big of a loan as you can possibly take out, because that's how they get paid. And that lender, similar to that car dealer, does not care how much you actually can afford, because at the end of the day, they can just repo the car. They can just they can foreclose on the property, and you still are on the hook, and they already got their money. So I really want you to be able to not fall into this same trap that so many millions of American people and households are falling into on a daily basis. Give yourself the breathing room that you deserve. Allow your money to work for you and not be tied up into so many different things that just drain you and drain your ability to live a fruitful life. You don't have to do it on pen and paper. There are so many mortgage calculators, and I'll leave one of my favorites in the description below that you can just kind of plug it in and see. Do this, using technology and not having to write it down. But again, however you decide to do it, the biggest thing I want you to really hone in on is you have the ability to take control of your finances, and doing a simple 5-minute exercise like this before going into a huge purchase or the next rental that you decide to move into can honestly be the one thing that makes or breaks the next 5, 10, 20 years of your life. So take this seriously, and I hope you got some value from this video. And maybe you're someone that you're ready to go into the market and you're ready to buy a house, or you're ready to look for your next rental, and maybe you don't want to do this by yourself. If you want me to run the numbers for your specific situation, or if you know your number and you're ready for that next step, and you want me to send you a custom home search for the type of property that you're ready to move into to find your dream home, then just click that link in the description and I'll gladly make myself available to help you take on this next step of your life and finding a home that you love.